The meeting room of the Galactic Council was completely silent. Ambassador Helen Grant walked slowly to the center of the chamber. Her face showed nothing, no anger, no sadness, just emptiness. But everyone who knew humans understood that this quiet was more dangerous than any shouting or threats. 3 months had passed since the Zathrene destroyed Colony 7. 2 million humans died in seconds. The attack was planned carefully. It was meant to show everyone that humans were weak and did not belong among the powerful species of the galaxy. For weeks after the attack, Earth did everything the right way. They complained to the Council. They asked for investigations. They wanted justice. The other alien species said they were sorry, but they did nothing else. The Zathrene were too strong, too important. Nobody wanted to make them angry. Captain Jake Morrison was standing on the bridge of his ship, the Earth defense ship Valiant, when he got his new orders. He read them once, then read them again. He could not believe what he was seeing. But the signature of Admiral Patricia Cole was real, and the message was very clear. All ships must leave their positions, Jake said out loud so his crew could hear. Everyone returns to Earth space right now. His second officer, Lieutenant Sophie Barnes, looked confused. Sir, if we do that, the outer colonies will have no protection at all. Jake looked at her with dark, serious eyes. No, Lieutenant. That means we are bringing every single warship we have into one giant fleet. All across human territory, every ship got the same order. Every destroyer, every cruiser, every carrier started moving back toward Earth. The galaxy watched and felt satisfied. Humanity was running away. They were accepting their place as a weak species. The lesson had worked, but they were completely wrong. Helen Grant's voice filled the council chamber. Every species could hear her words clearly. For 3 months, we have asked you for justice. For 3 months, you have ignored us. The Galactic Council has taught us that your laws only protect the strong. They do not deliver real justice. She stopped talking for a moment. She wanted everyone to understand what she was saying. Humanity is leaving the Galactic Council starting right now. We will not follow treaties that you only enforce when you want to. We will not pretend that civilization means anything when you allow genocide to happen, without consequences. The council exploded into noise. Everyone started talking at once. The Zathrene ambassador was tall with skin that looked like crystal. He started laughing. You are threatening us, little humans? You are barely worth our attention. Helen turned to look directly at him. Her eyes were cold and hard. We are not threatening you. We are making a promise. You wanted to see what humans become when we stop being civilized. You are about to find out. The Zathrene ambassador stopped laughing. Something in Helen's voice made even him feel uncomfortable. She was not angry. She was not scared. She was something else. Something that made the temperature in the room feel colder. Back on Earth, the military was already changing everything. The orbital shipyards above the planet were working all day and all night. Ships that should have taken years to build were being finished in weeks. The lights from the shipyards were so bright that people on Earth could see them in the night sky. In a secret war room deep under the city of Geneva, Commander Lisa Hayes stood looking at holographic displays. The displays showed where every human military ship was located. Hundreds of officers worked around her, coordinating the biggest military mobilization in human history. General Marcus Webb pointed at a map showing Zathrene territory. The Zathrene have 17 homeworlds and more than 200 space stations. Their fleet has 5 times more ships than we do. Then we do not fight their fleet in a fair battle, Lisa answered. We have been studying the Zathrene for many years. They are proud and they never change their tactics. They think warfare has to follow their rules. She brought up a new display on the screen. Their supply lines are easy to attack. Their command structure has one central point, and they have never fought an enemy that is willing to abandon the rules of civilized warfare. Admiral Patricia Cole walked into the room. Everyone immediately paid attention to her. What is our status? The fleet will be ready in 2 weeks, Marcus told her. But Admiral, the Council is threatening to punish us with sanctions. The Valorians have cut off all diplomatic contact. Even species that feel sorry for us are backing away. Patricia's face remained cold and emotionless. Let them. We asked for their help. We begged for justice. They chose their side. She turned to look at all the officers in the room. Humanity tried peace. We offered friendship to the galaxy. They taught us that mercy looks like weakness out here. She activated a display that showed the entire galaxy. The Zathrene think they have broken us. Let them believe that for 2 more weeks. Then we will show them what humans can really do when we stop holding ourselves back. While the military prepared, civilian ships started evacuating the remaining colonies. Children held their favorite toys as they got on transport ships. They did not understand why they had to leave their homes. Parents tried to comfort them while hiding their own fear. On Colony 3, Mayor John Stevens watched the last transport ship fly away into space. He had volunteered to stay behind with a small group of security people. If the Zathreen came back, someone needed to record what happened. Someone needed to be a witness. But the Zathreen did not come. Human space became quieter every day. The silence made the galaxy's intelligence agencies nervous. They knew something was happening, but they could not figure out what. Secret messages bounced between Earth and the scattered human fleet. New weapons were installed on every ship. Soldiers trained for situations that made even experienced veterans uncomfortable. In laboratories across human space, scientists worked on projects that would have been unthinkable just a few months ago. Captain Jake Morrison gathered his crew on the Valiant. He needed to tell them the truth. I will not lie to you. What we are about to do breaks every rule of combat we have ever learned. Some of you might have trouble with the orders you will receive. If anyone wants to transfer to a different ship, you can ask right now. No questions, no judgment, not a single person moved. Nobody asked to leave. Sophie Barnes spoke for everyone. They killed 2 million of us, Captain. They laughed about it. We are ready to do whatever it takes. Jake nodded slowly. His face was serious. Then God help us all. Because once we start down this road, we can never go back. We will become something different. Something harder. The crew understood. They had all lost someone on Colony 7. Friends, family, loved ones. The pain was still fresh and raw. And now they had a chance to make the Zathreen feel that same pain. Outside the ship, space looked peaceful and calm. Stars shone in the darkness like they always had. But something had changed. Humanity had changed. The galaxy had pushed them too far. And now they would learn what happened when a peaceful species decided to stop being peaceful. 2 weeks until the fleet was ready. 2 weeks until everything changed. 2 weeks until the Zathreen learned that genocide has consequences. The shipyards around Earth looked like burning stars against the black of space. What used to be normal construction facilities now worked every hour of every day. The changes were so big that people on Earth could see them without telescopes. Ships that should have taken years to build were being completed in just weeks. Commander Lisa Hayes stood in the underground war room in Geneva. She was surrounded by holographic screens showing every human military ship and where it was located. The room was full of activity. Hundreds of officers worked together, planning the largest military operation humanity had ever attempted. General Marcus Webb pointed at a tactical screen. The Zathreen control 17 major planets and over 200 space stations. Their military fleet is 5 times bigger than ours. If we fight them directly, we will lose. Then we do not fight them directly, Lisa said. We have studied the Zathreen for decades. They are proud. They think they are superior to everyone. They believe warfare must be fought in a certain way, following certain rules. She pulled up new information on the screen. But their supply lines are vulnerable. They depend on shipments of food, fuel, and materials. Their command structure is centralized, which means if we hit the right targets, we can paralyze their entire system. And most importantly, they have never faced an enemy willing to ignore the conventions of civilized warfare. Admiral Patricia Cole entered the war room. Her presence made everyone stand a little straighter. She commanded respect without saying a word. What is our current status? The fleet will be ready to deploy in 2 weeks, Marcus reported. However, Admiral, we have a problem. The Galactic Council is threatening economic sanctions against us. The Valorians have completely cut off diplomatic relations. Even species that were sympathetic to our loss are now distancing themselves from us. Patricia's expression did not change. It remained cold and determined. Let them distance themselves. We asked them for help. We begged them for justice. They made their choice. She turned to face all the officers in the room. Humanity extended a hand of friendship to this galaxy. We tried to be peaceful, to be civilized, and they taught us that mercy is seen as weakness among the stars. She activated a display showing the entire known galaxy. The Zathreen believe they have defeated us. They think we are broken. Let them believe that for 2 more weeks. Then we will show them what human beings are truly capable of when we remove our self-imposed limitations. Meanwhile, far out on the edge of human territory, Civilian transport ships were evacuating the last remaining colonies. Parents held their children close as they boarded the vessels. The children asked questions their parents could not answer. Why were they leaving? When could they come home? The adults tried to be brave, but fear showed in their eyes. On Colony 3, Mayor John Stevens stood on the landing platform and watched the final transport ship lift off into the sky. He had volunteered to stay behind with a small team of security personnel. If the Zathrene returned, someone needed to document what happened. Someone needed to bear witness to whatever came next. But the Zathrene did not return. Human space grew quieter with each passing day. This silence worried the intelligence services of other species. They knew something was happening. They could feel it. But none of their spies or sensors could tell them what humanity was planning. Encrypted communications bounced between Earth and the scattered fleet. New weapon systems were being installed on every warship. Some of these weapons were experimental. Some had never been tested in actual combat. Soldiers and pilots trained for scenarios that made even the most experienced veterans feel uncomfortable. In secret laboratories across human territory, scientists worked on projects that would have been forbidden just months earlier. Captain Jake Morrison called a meeting with his entire crew aboard the Valiant. Everyone gathered in the main assembly area. They could tell from his face that something important was about to happen. "I'm going to be honest with you," Jake began. "The orders we are about to receive will violate every rule of military engagement we have ever been taught. The things we will be asked to do go against everything we learned in training. Some of you may find these orders difficult to follow. If anyone wants to request a transfer to another assignment, you can do so right now. There will be no judgment." No questions asked. The room was completely silent. Not a single person moved. Not a single person raised their hand. Lieutenant Sophie Barnes stepped forward. She spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "Captain, they murdered 2 million of our people. Men, women, children. They killed them all without warning, without mercy. And then they laughed about it. We are ready to do whatever is necessary." Jake looked at his crew. These were good people. People who had joined the military to protect others, to defend the weak, to stand for justice. Now they were being asked to become something else, something darker. "Then may God have mercy on our souls," Jake said quietly. "Because once we begin this operation, there is no turning back. We will cross lines that cannot be uncrossed. We will do things we cannot undo." He paused, making sure everyone understood the weight of what was coming. "The galaxy thinks we are weak because we value life. They think our compassion makes us easy targets. The Zathrene proved that when they destroyed Colony 7. But they are about to learn something about humans. We are peaceful by choice, not because we lack the capacity for violence. And when you take away our choice to be peaceful, when you murder our families and laugh about it, you discover what we really are underneath all that civilization." Across human space, similar conversations were happening on every ship, in every military base. Officers and soldiers prepared themselves mentally for what was coming. Some prayed. Some wrote letters to family members, just in case they did not return. Some sat in silence thinking about the people they had lost on Colony 7. The 2 weeks passed slowly. Every day more ships arrived at the staging area. Every day, new weapons were loaded and tested. Every day, humanity moved one step closer to becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. In the Zathrene capital city, Grand Commander Thelkar was meeting with his advisors. They were discussing the humans and whether they posed any real threat. "The humans have withdrawn all their ships," one advisor reported. "They are hiding near their homeworld. Our intelligence suggests they are afraid of further retaliation." Thelkar's crystalline face reflected the light as he laughed. "Of course they are afraid. We demonstrated our superiority. We showed them their place in the galactic hierarchy. Let this be a lesson to other minor species who forget their station." But not all of his advisors were confident. The Minister of Intelligence spoke up. "Commander, I am concerned. The humans have gone completely silent. We have no information about what they are doing. This is unusual behavior." "They are doing nothing because they can do nothing," Thelkar replied dismissively. "They are weak. They are frightened. We have broken their spirit." The Minister of Intelligence was not convinced, but he said nothing more. In his long career, he had learned that silence often meant something was being planned. And the complete silence coming from human territory worried him more than any threat ever could. Back on Earth, Admiral Patricia Cole stood alone in her office, looking out at the night sky. In 2 days, the fleet would launch. In 2 days, humanity would cross a line it had never crossed before. She thought about the people on Colony 7. She thought about the children who had died there. She thought about the families torn apart in an instant. "This is for you," she whispered to the stars. "Justice is coming. Finally, justice is coming." The countdown had begun. 2 days until humanity stopped being civilized. 2 days until the galaxy learned what humans became when you pushed them past their breaking point. 2 days until the Zathreen discovered that genocide demands an answer, and Earth's answer was about to be written in fire across the stars. The Zathreen monitoring station floated peacefully in orbit around the planet Kelth 4. The crew went about their normal duties. They were bored. Nothing ever happened at this remote outpost. They monitored shipping lanes and recorded data. It was routine work. The sensors detected incoming ships, but the alarm came too late. By the time the station's defensive systems activated, the Earth Defense Fleet had already positioned itself for attack. The human ships appeared out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, weapons already hot and ready to fire. But this was not a normal military attack. There were no warning broadcasts. No one demanded surrender. No one gave the Zathreen crew a chance to evacuate. The human ships simply opened fire with weapons the Zathreen had never encountered before. Lieutenant Sophie Barnes sat at her weapons console aboard the Valiant. Her targeting screen showed the station clearly. The shields were failing. "Kinetic missiles ready, Captain." Captain Jake Morrison did not hesitate. "Fire all weapons." The missiles were not complicated. They were simple tungsten rods. Heavy metal cylinders accelerated to incredible speeds. Once launched, they were impossible to stop. Physics became a weapon. The rods struck the station with the force of nuclear explosions, but without the radiation. The structure shattered like glass. Metal twisted and tore. Atmosphere vented into space. The station broke apart, debris spreading in all directions. "Are there any escape pods?" Jake asked. His voice was flat, emotionless. "None detected, sir," Sophie reported. "Move to the next target." This same scene was playing out across Zathreen territory. 17 simultaneous attacks destroyed orbital infrastructure, communication relays, supply depots, and monitoring stations. Human forces struck with brutal efficiency and overwhelming violence. Then, before any Zathreen military ships could respond, the human fleet vanished back into faster-than-light travel. In the Zathreen capital, Grand Commander Thelkar watched as reports flooded into his command center. Each report brought worse news. His crystalline features, normally calm and controlled, twisted with rage. "How dare these primitive creatures attack us?" he shouted. "Deploy the Second Fleet immediately. I want every human ship found and destroyed." His chief military advisor hesitated before speaking. "Commander, the humans are not engaging our fleet. They are targeting civilian infrastructure and support facilities." "Then they are cowards," Thelkar spat. "Our fleet will hunt them down like the animals they are and crush them." But the human ships did not wait to be hunted. They struck at supply convoys traveling between Zathreen worlds. They destroyed mining operations that provided raw materials. They attacked trade routes. Any Zathreen vessel that was not clearly marked as military became a target. The rules of engagement that humanity had followed for decades were completely abandoned, replaced by cold, calculated efficiency. Admiral Patricia Cole stood in the operations center on Earth, watching the tactical display. Green lights indicated successful strikes. They were spreading across Zathreen space like a disease. General Marcus Webb stood beside her. His face showed concern. "Admiral, the other species in the galaxy are condemning our actions. They are calling us war criminals. Some are even calling for military action against us." "War criminals," Patricia repeated the word slowly. "These are the same species that stood by and watched while the Zathreen committed genocide against Colony 7. Now they are upset that we are fighting back." She turned to look directly at Marcus. "Where were these moral crusaders when our people were dying? Where was their outrage then?" Helen Grant had returned to Earth after leaving the Galactic Council. She now served as civilian oversight for the military operation. "The Council has sent an official demand that we cease all hostile actions immediately. They are threatening to organize a military intervention against us." "Let them try," Patricia said coldly. "Let them explain to their own citizens why they are protecting genocidal aliens instead of defending the victims. Let them explain why Zathreen lives matter more than human lives. The Zathreen Second Fleet, consisting of 17 powerful warships, finally managed to intercept a human task force near the Velton system. Commander Lisa Hayes commanded 3 human destroyers that now faced an enemy force nearly 6 times their size. They are trying to communicate with us, her communications officer reported. Ignore all transmissions, Lisa ordered. All weapons free. Execute attack pattern Delta. The 3 human destroyers should not have had any chance against 17 Zathreen warships. In a traditional battle, they would have been destroyed quickly. But the humans were not fighting a traditional battle. As the Zathreen fleet moved to engage, the human destroyers launched every single missile they carried. Hundreds of missiles filled the space between the 2 fleets. Then the human ships activated their faster-than-light drives and disappeared. The Zathreen fleet's defensive systems easily handled the missile attack. Their point defense weapons shot down most of the incoming projectiles. The Zathreen commanders felt victorious. The humans had run away. Then they realized something horrible. The missiles were not aimed at the Zathreen fleet. They were targeted at Velton Station, a massive civilian habitat that orbited nearby. 50,000 Zathreen citizens lived on that station. Families, children, elderly, civilians who had nothing to do with the military. The station's defensive systems activated desperately, shooting down as many missiles as possible, but 3 missiles got through the defenses. They struck the habitat's outer sections. The explosions tore through the structure. Entire sections decompressed instantly. People were pulled into space. Emergency bulkheads sealed, but thousands were already dead. Grand Commander Thelkar received the casualty report in his command center. For the first time since the war began, he felt something other than anger. He felt fear. They attacked civilians? His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. They deliberately targeted a civilian station? Yes, Commander. Current estimates indicate 12,000 dead. The number may rise as rescue operations continue. Thelkar sat down slowly. He finally understood what was happening. The humans were not trying to defeat the Zathreen military in battle. They could not win that way. Instead, they were doing to the Zathreen exactly what had been done to Colony 7. But they were doing it slowly, methodically, making the Zathreen feel every single loss. They are making us pay, Thelkar said quietly. Death for death, pain for pain. His advisor nodded. What are your orders, Commander? Thelkar looked at the tactical display showing Zathreen territory. Red marks indicated human attacks. There were so many red marks now. Pull our fleet back to defend the core worlds. Abandon the outer territories if necessary. We must protect our civilian population centers. It was exactly what Admiral Cole had predicted the Zathreen would do, by attacking everywhere at once. The humans forced the Zathreen to spread their defenses thin or abandon territory. Either choice played into the human strategy. Aboard the Valiant, Captain Jake Morrison reviewed the intelligence reports. The Zathreen fleet was consolidating around their home worlds. Outer colonies and stations were being left with minimal protection. Sophie, how are our pilots and crew holding up? Jake asked. Lieutenant Barnes hesitated before answering. Some are struggling, sir. Targeting civilian infrastructure goes against everything we were trained to believe in, everything we thought the military stood for. Jake looked out at the stars through the viewport. I know, but the Zathreen did not make distinctions when they attacked Colony 7. They killed everyone. Military, civilian, it did not matter to them. We are simply showing them what their own tactics feel like. Sir, do you ever wonder if we have become what we are fighting against? Sophie asked quietly. Jake turned to face her. Every single day, Lieutenant. Every single day, he paused. But I also think about the 2 million people who died when Colony 7 was destroyed. I think about the children who were vaporized in an instant. I think about the families torn apart. Someone has to speak for them. Someone has to demand justice for them. Even if seeking that justice cost us our souls? Jake had no answer for that question. The human campaign continued without mercy. Food shipments were destroyed, causing shortages on Zathreen worlds. Power generation facilities were sabotaged, leaving cities in darkness. Medical supply convoys were targeted, creating healthcare crises. The Zathreen civilian population began experiencing hardships and suffering they had never known in their long history. And with each attack, the same message was broadcast. This is for Colony 7. This is justice for the 2 million humans you murdered. This is what happens when you commit genocide. The galaxy watched in horror as humanity transformed from peaceful explorers into something dark and vengeful. And in the cold silence of space, the war continued. The Galactic Council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species. This was an emergency session called to address what everyone was now calling the human crisis. The mood in the room was tense. Species that normally disagreed on everything were united in their concern about humanity's actions. The Valorian ambassador stood to speak first. His voice carried across the chamber. Humanity must be stopped immediately. Their attacks on civilian targets violate every principle of civilized warfare that this council was built to protect. We must form a coalition force to compel their surrender. Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. Representatives nodded to each other. Species that had completely ignored humanity's pleas for justice after Colony 7 now stood together in condemning human actions. Then something unexpected happened. The main display screen activated without authorization. Helen Grant's face appeared, filling the massive screen. She had not been invited to this session. Humanity was no longer part of the council, but somehow they had hacked into the communication systems. You want to discuss civilized warfare? Helen's voice was ice cold. Where was this council when the Zathreen murdered 2 million humans in a single attack? Where were your principles of civilization then? The Valorian ambassador tried to speak, but Helen continued, cutting him off. We came to you for justice. We showed you the evidence. We followed every protocol, every procedure. And what did you do? You offered sympathy. You gave us empty words. Then you did absolutely nothing. Helen leaned closer to the camera. You taught us the truth about this galaxy. The only law that matters here is power. The only justice is what you can take for yourself. She paused, letting her words sink in. So here is humanity's message to the Galactic Council. Stay out of our way. This matter is between us and the Zathreen. Any species that interferes will be considered an enemy combatant and dealt with accordingly. You had your chance to prevent this war. You chose to do nothing. Now live with the consequences of your inaction. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the council chamber in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate military action. Others argued for caution. The unity they had shown moments earlier was already fracturing. Aboard the Valiant, Captain Jake Morrison reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Maps showed Zathreen fleet movements. The enemy was pulling back their military forces to protect their most important worlds. They were abandoning their frontier territories. It was exactly what Admiral Cole's strategic planning had predicted would happen. Sophie, how are our combat pilots doing mentally? Jake asked his second officer. Lieutenant Sophie Barnes was quiet for a moment before answering. Honestly, sir, some of them are really struggling. Targeting civilian infrastructure, destroying supply ships that might have families aboard. It goes against everything we believed the military was supposed to be. Jake looked out at the stars visible through the viewport. I understand. I struggle with it too. Sir, do you ever wonder if we have become exactly what we are fighting against? Sophie asked. The Zathreen destroyed Colony 7 without mercy. Now we are destroying their stations and convoys without mercy. How are we different? Jake turned to face her directly. We are different because they started this. They chose genocide. We are simply responding in the only language they understand. He paused. But yes, Sophie, I wonder about it every single day. I wonder if we will ever be able to go back to who we were before this war started. The human military campaign continued with relentless precision. Every day brought new attacks on Zathreen infrastructure. Food production facilities were destroyed, creating shortages. Water treatment plants were sabotaged, causing public health crises. Power stations were targeted, leaving entire cities in darkness. Medical supply convoys were intercepted and destroyed, overwhelming Zathreen hospitals. The Zathreen civilian population began experiencing real suffering for the first time in generations. Their leaders had started a war, and now ordinary people were paying the price. Grand Commander Thelkar faced increasing pressure from his own government. A council member confronted him in the command center. The humans are systematically destroying our economy. Our people are suffering. Food prices have increased 5 times. Power is being rationed. Medical supplies are running dangerously low. Perhaps we should consider negotiating with them. Negotiate? Thelkar's voice was filled with contempt. With animals? With primitives? Never. We will crush them with our superior forces. But Commander, they are not fighting our forces. Every time we deploy the fleet to defend a location, they attack somewhere else. It is like fighting smoke. We cannot catch them. Thelkar had no response. The truth was that the humans were winning through tactics the Zatharine had never encountered. They refused to fight fair battles. They struck at the weak points and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Commander Lisa Hayes led another raid, this time against a Zatharine mining colony on a remote asteroid. Her ships emerged from faster-than-light travel, already firing. The mining equipment was destroyed in seconds. The processing facilities exploded. The colony's communication array was blown apart. As her ships prepared to jump back to faster-than-light, her communications officer spoke up. "Commander, we are receiving a distress signal from the colony surface. They are saying they have families there. They are asking us to stop. They say there are children." Lisa's jaw tightened. Her hands gripped the edge of her console. "Note the transmission in the official log. All ships execute the jump sequence now." The human fleet disappeared, leaving the destroyed mining colony behind. Later, alone in her quarters, Lisa sat in darkness and reviewed the casualty reports on her personal screen. Numbers scrolled past. Zatharine dead. Human dead. Facilities destroyed. Ships lost. Resources depleted. She wondered when she had stopped seeing them as living beings and started seeing them as just numbers and statistics. When had she become someone who could ignore pleas from families with children? But then she forced herself to remember Colony 7. She pulled up the casualty list from that attack. 2 million names. She scrolled through them slowly. Every name was a person, a life. A story that ended in fire. Men, women, children, elderly, everyone. "I am sorry," Lisa whispered to the empty room. "I am sorry that it came to this. But you started this war. You chose genocide. We are just finishing what you began." 3 months into the war, the impact on Zatharine society was devastating. Their economy was collapsing. Over 50 worlds had suffered direct attacks. Trade between systems had nearly stopped because merchant ships were too afraid to travel. Food riots were breaking out in major cities. The government was losing control. The casualty count was climbing. Over 100,000 Zatharine civilians were confirmed dead. Millions more were displaced, living in temporary shelters after their homes were destroyed. The mighty Zatharine collective, which had laughed at humanity's pain just months earlier, now begged the Galactic Council to intervene. But the council was paralyzed. Some species wanted to help the Zatharine. Others quietly supported humanity's actions. Most were simply afraid. If humanity could do this to the powerful Zatharine, what could they do to anyone who got in their way? Admiral Patricia Cole received daily reports in the command center on Earth. Each report showed the war's progress. The Zatharine military was becoming defensive, focused only on protecting their core territory. Their economy was in shambles. Their government was unstable. By every measure, humanity was winning, but Patricia felt no satisfaction, no joy. She looked at the numbers and saw only destruction. Human pilots suffering from stress and moral injury. Zatharine civilians dying for their government's choices. A galaxy growing more fearful and divided every day. General Marcus Webb entered the command center. "Admiral, we have received a communication from the Galactic Council. The Zatharine have formally requested peace negotiations." Patricia looked up from her reports. "Peace negotiations? What are their terms?" "They are offering financial reparations for Colony 7. They are willing to accept responsibility for the attack." "Money," Patricia said quietly. "They think they can pay for 2 million lives with money. What should we tell the council?" Patricia stood and walked to the large viewport showing Earth below. The blue planet looked peaceful from space, beautiful, innocent, but it was the home of a species that had just spent 3 months destroying everything in its path. "Tell the council. We will agree to negotiate," Patricia said. "But we have conditions that must be met before any peace talks begin." "What conditions, Admiral?" Patricia turned to face Marcus. Her expression was hard. "First, the Zatharine must surrender every military officer and government official who was involved in ordering the attack on Colony 7. They will face trial under human jurisdiction. Second, the Zatharine will cede their 3 nearest star systems to humanity as permanent buffer zones. We will never trust them as neighbors again." Marcus wrote down the conditions. "And the third condition? The Galactic Council must formally acknowledge that their failure to act after Colony 7 directly caused this war. They must accept responsibility for their cowardice." "Admiral, these terms are extremely harsh. The Zathreen may refuse, Patricia's eyes were cold. Then the war continues. And next, the message from Earth reached the Galactic Council within hours. When the council members read humanity's conditions for peace negotiations, the chamber fell into shocked silence. The demands were harsh, uncompromising, and deliberately designed to humiliate the Zathreen. The Valorian ambassador spoke first, his voice showing disbelief. These terms are completely unacceptable. They are demanding that the Zathreen hand over their own government officials for trial by humans, that they surrender 3 entire star systems. This is madness. Helen Grant appeared on the communication screen again. This time the council had actually invited her to participate in the discussion. Madness? She repeated. The Zathreen committed genocide against 2 million humans. Our terms are justice, not madness. Your terms would destabilize the entire region, another ambassador argued. If the Zathreen government falls, it could create a power vacuum that leads to even more conflict. Then perhaps they should have thought about that before they vaporized Colony 7. Helen replied coldly. You all stood by and did nothing when we were the victims. Now you ask us to show mercy to those who showed us none? Where was your concern for stability when human children were dying? The Zathreen ambassador stood. His crystalline features reflected the chamber lights as he spoke. We will never agree to these terms. We would rather fight to the last Zathreen than submit to such humiliation. Helen's face showed no emotion. Then you will get your wish, because if you refuse our terms, the next phase of our campaign will not target infrastructure or supply lines. We will target your population centers directly, your cities, your homes, your families. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Some accused humanity of becoming monsters. Others quietly admitted that the Zathreen had brought this on themselves. The unity that had briefly existed was completely shattered. Captain Jake Morrison received the new operational orders while standing on the bridge of the Valiant. He read them carefully, hoping he had misunderstood. But the words were clear. If the Zathreen refused the peace terms, Phase 2 would begin. Phase 2 meant targeting civilian population centers directly. Sir, Lieutenant Sophie Barnes said quietly, are we really going to do this? Are we really going to attack cities full of civilians? Jake looked at his second officer. He saw the same doubt and fear on her face that he felt in his own heart. The orders are clear, Lieutenant, but carrying them out means we become exactly what we have been fighting against. Sophie nodded slowly. I joined the military to protect people, sir. Not to kill civilians, I know. I feel the same way. Across the human fleet, similar conversations were happening on every ship. Pilots and soldiers who had fought bravely for 3 months now questioned whether they could follow the next set of orders. This was different from destroying supply depots and mining stations. This was different from attacking military targets. This would be deliberate mass killing of civilians. On Earth, protests erupted in major cities. People who had supported the war effort after Colony 7 now marched in the streets demanding that the military stop. Signs read, "Justice, not genocide," and "We are better than this." The public was divided. Some wanted revenge no matter the cost. Others feared that humanity was losing its soul. Helen Grant addressed the global population in a broadcast from Geneva. Her face appeared on screens in every home, every public space, every device. People stopped what they were doing to listen. I understand your concerns, Helen began. I understand that what we are contemplating crosses a line that we swore we would never cross. Targeting civilian populations is exactly what the Zathreen did to us. If we do the same thing, how are we different from them? She paused, gathering her thoughts. But I ask you to remember Colony 7. Remember the 2 million people who died. Remember that we tried to get justice through peaceful means. We filed complaints. We presented evidence. We begged the Galactic Council to act. And they did nothing. Her voice grew harder. The Zathreen have refused every offer of peace. They have rejected every attempt at negotiation. How many more Colony 7s will we allow before we say enough is enough? In the Zathreen capital, Grand Commander Thelkar met with the High Council in an emergency session. The room was tense. Everyone knew that a decision had to be made, and quickly. If we refuse the human demands, they will attack our cities, one council member said. Intelligence reports suggest they have the capability to do significant damage. Millions could die. And if we accept their demands, another member countered, we admit weakness. Every species in the galaxy will see us as vulnerable. Our enemies will sense an opportunity. Our allies will abandon us. Thelkar listened to the debate. For 3 months he had been confident of victory. The Zathreen were superior. Their military was stronger. Their technology was more advanced. But the humans had not fought the way he expected. They had ignored all the rules, attacked from unexpected angles, and caused damage far beyond what their military strength should have allowed. "What about our people?" a council member asked. "What about the civilians who are suffering? Food shortages, power outages, medical crises. They did not choose this war. Our government did. The people will endure," Thelkar said firmly. "We are Zathreen. We do not bow to inferior species." "The humans are clearly not inferior," another member said quietly. "Perhaps we underestimated them from the beginning. Perhaps destroying Colony 7 was a mistake." Thelkar stood abruptly. "A mistake? We were establishing dominance. We were teaching them their place." "And what have we learned, Commander?" the council member asked. "We learned that humans are peaceful by choice, not by weakness. We learned that when you push them past their breaking point, they become something terrifying. We learned that genocide has consequences." The debate continued for hours. The Zathreen government was deeply divided. Some wanted to fight to the end, believing that showing any weakness would be fatal. Others wanted to accept the peace terms, arguing that survival was more important than pride. Finally, after hours of argument, they took a vote. The decision was close, but a majority agreed on a course of action. Admiral Patricia Cole was in the command center on Earth when the message arrived. She opened it with General Marcus Webb standing beside her. They read it in silence. "They are accepting our terms," Patricia said quietly. "All of them." Marcus let out a breath he had been holding. "Thank God the war is over." Around the command center, officers began celebrating. People hugged each other. Some cried with relief. The tension that had filled the room for months finally broke, but Patricia felt no joy. She looked at the final casualty reports displayed on her screen. 130,000 Zathreen civilians dead. 8,000 human military personnel killed in action. Hundreds of facilities destroyed. Trillions in economic damage. Entire regions destabilized. Helen Grant appeared on the communication screen. "Admiral, you did it. You got justice for Colony 7. "Justice," Patricia repeated the word slowly. "Is this really what justice looks like?" She gestured at the casualty numbers. "We became killers, Helen. We abandoned every principle we claimed to stand for." "They did not give us a choice." "There is always a choice," Patricia said. "We chose violence. We chose revenge over justice. We chose to become something dark and terrible." She turned away from the screen. "We won this war, but I wonder what we lost in the process." The news spread across human space within hours. The war was over. The Zathreen had accepted the peace terms. Humanity had won. Celebrations erupted on Earth and in the remaining colonies. People danced in the streets. Families cried tears of relief and joy. But for those who had fought, for those who had given the orders and pulled the triggers, the celebration felt hollow. They had done terrible things. They had crossed lines that could never be uncrossed. They had killed civilians and destroyed homes and orphaned children. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Valiant, watching Earth grow larger on the view screen as the fleet returned home. Lieutenant Sophie Barnes joined him. "Was it worth it, sir?" Sophie asked quietly. Jake was silent for a long moment. Stars shone peacefully outside the viewport. "We made them pay for Colony 7. We showed the galaxy that humanity will not be victims. We proved that there are consequences for genocide. But at what cost?" "At the cost of our innocence," Jake said. "At the cost of our belief that we were better than them. We lost something up here in the darkness between stars. Some part of our humanity that we can never get back." "Do you regret it?" Jake turned to look at her. "Every single day I will regret it. But I would do it again, because the alternative was letting them get away with murdering 2 million of our people. Sometimes there are no good choices, Sophie. Only necessary ones." The Earth Defense Fleet entered orbit around their homeworld to a hero's welcome. Parades were organized in every major city. Government officials prepared speeches and ceremonies. Medals were made ready to honor those who had served. The population celebrated their victory and the return of their defenders. But as Captain Jake Morrison's shuttle descended through the atmosphere toward the landing platform in Geneva, he felt no sense of triumph. Through the window, he could see crowds of people waving flags and holding signs. They were cheering, celebrating, treating the returning soldiers as heroes. Lieutenant Sophie Barnes sat beside him in the shuttle. They do not understand, do they? They think this was a clean victory. They do not know what we really did out there. Jake shook his head slowly. They know we fought. They know we won, but they were not there when we destroyed supply convoys that might have had families aboard. They were not there when we ignored distress calls from civilians. They were not there when we became the very thing we were supposed to be fighting against. The shuttle landed and the doors opened. The sound of cheering rushed in like a wave. Jake and his crew stepped out onto the platform. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Officials waited to shake their hands and thank them for their service. Admiral Patricia Cole stood at the main podium for the victory ceremony. Thousands of people filled the plaza below. Millions more watched on screens around the world. She was supposed to give a speech celebrating humanity's triumph over the Zatharine. She was supposed to declare that justice had been served. But as she looked out at the celebrating crowds, Patricia felt only emptiness. People of Earth, she began. Today we celebrate the end of the war with the Zatharine Collective. We celebrate the return of our brave soldiers and pilots. We celebrate that justice has been delivered for the 2 million souls lost at Colony 7. The crowd cheered. Patricia waited for the noise to die down before continuing. But I want to speak honestly with you about what this victory cost us. Yes, we defeated the Zatharine. Yes, we forced them to accept our terms. Yes, we made them pay for their crime. She paused. But in doing so, we became something we never wanted to be. We targeted civilians. We destroyed homes. We caused suffering to innocent people who had no part in the decision to attack Colony 7. The crowd grew quieter. Some people looked confused. This was not the triumphant speech they had expected. We won this war by abandoning the principles that made us who we were. We won by becoming ruthless, by becoming cruel, by doing to them what they did to us. Patricia's voice grew softer, and I wonder if that was really victory, or if we simply joined them in darkness. After the ceremony, Patricia returned to her office. She was exhausted. 3 months of coordinating military operations, making impossible decisions and carrying the weight of command had drained her completely. General Marcus Webb entered without knocking. That was quite a speech, Admiral. Some government officials are not happy with what you said. They wanted a celebration, not a moral reflection. I spoke the truth, Patricia said simply. These people deserve to know what we did to achieve this victory. They deserve to understand the price we paid. The price they paid, you mean? The soldiers and pilots. The ones who had to carry out the orders. Patricia nodded. How are they doing? What are the reports saying? Marcus sat down heavily. Not good. A lot of them are struggling with what they were asked to do. The psychological support services are overwhelmed. Many are having trouble sleeping. Some are questioning whether they can continue serving in the military. And the Zatharine? Patricia asked. What is happening in their territory? Chaos, Marcus replied. Their government is unstable. The officials we demanded for trial are being transported to neutral territory. The 3-star systems they ceded to us are being evacuated. Millions of Zatharine are displaced, moving away from the buffer zone. Patricia looked out her window at the city below. People were still celebrating in the streets. More suffering, more pain. When does it end, Marcus? I do not know, Admiral. I honestly do not know. On the other side of the galaxy, the Zatharine were dealing with the aftermath of their defeat. Grand Commander Thelkar had been removed from power. Several high-ranking officials had committed suicide rather than face human justice. The government was in disarray. In the streets of the Zatharine capital, protests and riots were happening. Some citizens blamed their government for starting a war they could not win. Others wanted to continue fighting, seeing surrender as ultimate humiliation. The society was tearing itself apart. A young Zatharine named Krell stood in the ruins of a mining colony that had been destroyed by human attack. His family had worked here for generations. Now it was just twisted metal and broken dreams. They took everything from us, Krell said to his friend. Our jobs, our homes, our future. The government took everything from us, his friend corrected. They started this war. They attacked the human colony. We are paying the price for their arrogance. But the humans did not have to respond this way. They could have been better than us. Why should they be better? We showed them that mercy is weakness. We taught them that in this galaxy only power matters. They learned the lesson we taught them. The Galactic Council was also dealing with the consequences of the war. The Council's authority had been severely damaged. Multiple species had lost faith in the organization's ability to maintain peace and deliver justice. Some species quietly approached human representatives about forming new defense alliances. They had seen what humanity was capable of when pushed to the edge. They wanted that strength on their side, not against them. Other species viewed humanity with fear and suspicion. They saw a dangerous species that had proven willing to abandon civilized behavior. They worried about what humanity might do next. The galaxy was changing. The old order was breaking down. Trust between species was eroding. Everyone was looking at their neighbors differently, wondering who might be the next target if they made a mistake. Helen Grant met with Admiral Patricia Cole in a private room away from cameras and reporters. They had both been at the center of humanity's response to the genocide. They had both made decisions that would haunt them forever. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Helen asked. Patricia was quiet for a long moment. "I think we did the necessary thing. Whether it was right, I honestly cannot say. The Zethrine committed genocide. We had to respond." "Yes, but did we have to respond by becoming like them? Did we have to kill their civilians? Did we have to destroy their homes and orphan their children?" Helen had no answer. She had asked herself the same questions 1,000 times. "I spoke with some of the soldiers today," Patricia continued. "Young people who followed orders because they trusted their leaders. Now they are having nightmares. They see the faces of the people they killed. They hear the distress calls they ignored. We asked them to do terrible things and they will carry that burden for the rest of their lives. They volunteered to serve," Helen said. "They knew military service could mean difficult choices. Did they know it would mean targeting civilians? Did they know it would mean becoming war criminals by any reasonable definition?" Patricia shook her head. "We crossed lines that should never be crossed. We justified it by saying the Zethrine crossed those lines first, but that justification does not change what we did." Weeks passed. The immediate celebration of victory faded. Reality set in. The soldiers returned to their families but found it difficult to readjust to normal life. How do you explain to your children that you spent months destroying other people's homes? How do you tell your spouse about the nightmares that wake you up screaming? Commander Lisa Hayes tried to return to regular duties but found it impossible. Every time she gave an order, she remembered the orders she had given during the war. Every time she looked at a star map, she saw the places she had attacked. The weight of what she had done was crushing. She requested a meeting with Admiral Cole. When she entered the office, Patricia could immediately see the pain in her eyes. "I am resigning my commission," Lisa said without preamble. "I cannot do this anymore." Patricia nodded slowly. She had expected this. "You were one of our best officers, Commander. Your tactical skills were essential to our victory." "That victory cost too much," Lisa said quietly. "It cost me my ability to look at myself in the mirror. It cost me my belief that I was a good person doing good things. You followed orders. You did your duty. I followed orders to kill civilians. I did my duty by ignoring pleas for mercy." Lisa's voice broke. "I am not sure I can live with what I have become." Patricia stood and walked around her desk. She put a hand on Lisa's shoulder. "Many of us are struggling with the same feelings. You are not alone. Does that make it better? Does shared guilt somehow become less guilt?" "No," Patricia admitted. "It does not. But perhaps together we can find a way forward. A way to live with what we have done and somehow become better people despite it." Captain Jake Morrison faced similar struggles. He tried to reconnect with his family, but found a distance between himself and them that had not existed before. His wife looked at him differently. His children seemed almost afraid of him. He had become a stranger to the people he loved most. One night, his young daughter asked him a simple question. "Daddy, did